In 1930, Nikola Tesla, the legendary inventor who had created the alternating current system and dozens of revolutionary technologies, made a rare public statement expressing concern about a young rival whose brilliance threatened to eclipse even his own achievements, a teenage inventor who had conceived a revolutionary device while plowing his family's potato field at age 14 and would go on to develop over 300 patents in fields ranging from television to nuclear fusion, yet whose name has been systematically erased from the technology he invented, his contributions stolen by corporations that grew wealthy from his genius while he died in poverty and obscurity. This is the story of Philo T. Farnsworth, the self-taught farm boy who invented electronic television, fought decades-long patent battles against massive corporations including RCA, and whose visionary work on everything from radar to nuclear fusion demonstrated a creative genius that made even Tesla acknowledge he had met his intellectual equal. Born on August 19, 1906, in a log cabin near Beaver, Utah, Philo Taylor Farnsworth grew up in the rural American West where electricity was still a novelty and the modern world seemed distant from the harsh realities of farm life. His father was a struggling farmer who moved the family repeatedly seeking better opportunities, eventually settling in Rigby, Idaho, where 12-year-old Philo discovered something that would change his life: a stack of old science magazines in the attic of their new farmhouse. Young Philo devoured these magazines, reading about radio waves, electrons, and electromagnetic theory, teaching himself advanced physics and electrical engineering concepts that most children his age could not begin to comprehend. The Farnsworth farm had recently been electrified, one of the first in the region, and Philo became obsessed with electricity and its possibilities. He repaired the farm's generator when it broke down, surprising adult technicians who could not solve the problem, and he began conducting experiments with electrical circuits, building radio receivers from spare parts, and sketching designs for devices that existed only in his imagination. His high school chemistry teacher, Justin Tolman, recognized extraordinary genius in this quiet farm boy who asked questions that went far beyond the standard curriculum and demonstrated intuitive understanding of complex scientific principles. At age 14, while plowing the family's potato field in neat parallel rows, Philo had the insight that would define his life and change human civilization. He had been reading about mechanical television systems that used spinning discs with holes to capture and transmit images, devices that were cumbersome, unreliable, and produced terrible picture quality. As he guided the plow back and forth across the field, watching the neat parallel furrows appear behind him, Philo suddenly realized that images could be broken down into horizontal lines and transmitted electronically using beams of electrons, exactly like the parallel rows he was creating in the soil. He rushed home and sketched his concept for electronic television, showing his chemistry teacher detailed drawings of an image dissector tube and cathode ray receiver that would capture and display moving images electronically without any mechanical parts. Tolman was astonished by the sophistication of the 14-year-old's drawings, which demonstrated understanding of electron physics, electromagnetic fields, and vacuum tube technology far beyond what a farm boy should possess. He encouraged Philo to pursue his vision, though neither could imagine how difficult the road ahead would be or how powerful the forces that would try to steal his invention. Tragedy struck when Philo's father died suddenly in 1924, forcing Philo to abandon his education and support his family through various jobs including street sweeper and amateur radio operator. Despite these setbacks, he continued developing his television concept in his spare time, eventually meeting philanthropists George Everson and Leslie Gorrell, who agreed to fund his research after being convinced by his passionate explanation of electronic television's potential. In 1926, at age 20, Farnsworth moved to Los Angeles and established a small laboratory where he began building the first electronic television system. Working with minimal equipment and funding, he designed and constructed the image dissector tube, a vacuum tube device that used magnetic fields to scan images and convert them into electrical signals that could be transmitted and displayed. On September 7, 1927, Farnsworth successfully transmitted the first electronic television image, a simple horizontal line, proving his potato field vision could work in practice. His financial backers, watching this crude demonstration, asked when they would see dollars instead of lines, not understanding they were witnessing the birth of an industry that would generate trillions. News of Farnsworth's success reached David Sarnoff, the powerful head of RCA and the Radio Corporation of America, who had invested heavily in mechanical television and recognized that this young inventor's electronic system would make their technology obsolete. Sarnoff sent his chief engineer, Vladimir Zworykin, to visit Farnsworth's laboratory under the pretense of collaboration, but Zworykin was actually there to steal Farnsworth's designs and recreate them for RCA. If you find these stories of brilliant inventors whose creations were stolen by powerful corporations yet whose genius could not be completely erased inspiring, consider subscribing to Hidden Minds and activating the notification bell to discover more extraordinary individuals whose innovations shaped our modern world despite systematic efforts to deny them recognition. The conflict between Farnsworth and RCA would define the rest of his life, as Sarnoff, one of the most ruthless businessmen in American history, launched a campaign to destroy the young inventor through patent challenges, propaganda, and corporate manipulation. RCA claimed that Zworykin had invented electronic television first, despite overwhelming evidence that Farnsworth's system predated Zworykin's work by years and that Zworykin had copied Farnsworth's designs after visiting his laboratory. The patent battles dragged on for over a decade, consuming Farnsworth's time, money, and energy that should have been devoted to further innovation. RCA had unlimited resources and teams of lawyers, while Farnsworth operated with limited funding and a small staff, yet he fought tenaciously, ultimately winning a decisive victory in 1934 when the Patent Office ruled that Farnsworth had priority in inventing electronic television. This victory was unprecedented, as RCA had never before lost a patent dispute, but Farnsworth's high school chemistry teacher Justin Tolman testified about the drawings Farnsworth had shown him in 1922, providing irrefutable proof that the teenager had conceived electronic television before anyone else. Despite winning the patent battle, Farnsworth never received fair compensation for his invention because RCA simply waited out his patents, refusing to license his technology and preventing other manufacturers from using it through intimidation and market control. When World War II began, television development was suspended for military production, and by the time commercial television resumed after the war, Farnsworth's key patents had expired, allowing RCA to use his technology without paying him anything. Beyond television, Farnsworth made significant contributions to radar technology during World War II, developed the Farnsworth Fusor for nuclear fusion research, and created innovations in electron microscopy, infrared night vision, and astronomical telescopes. His Fusor design, which used electric fields to confine and heat plasma, represented a completely different approach to fusion energy than the magnetic confinement systems that dominated research, and modern fusion researchers have returned to studying Farnsworth's concepts as potentially viable paths to clean energy. Farnsworth held over 300 patents across multiple fields, demonstrating the breadth of his inventive genius, yet he received almost no public recognition during his lifetime. When television became the dominant medium of American culture in the 1950s and 60s, RCA and David Sarnoff received credit for its development, with Sarnoff portrayed in media as the father of television while Farnsworth's name was deliberately suppressed. The psychological toll of this erasure was devastating, as Farnsworth watched his invention transform society while corporations that had stolen from him built billion-dollar empires. He struggled with depression and alcoholism, haunted by the knowledge that he had created something revolutionary but received nothing in return except decades of legal battles and broken promises. His wife Pem, who had been his laboratory assistant and partner throughout his work, watched helplessly as the man who had been a teenage genius with limitless potential became increasingly bitter about the injustice he had suffered. In 1957, Farnsworth appeared on the television show I've Got a Secret, where contestants had to guess his secret, which was that he had invented the very medium on which they were appearing. The panelists failed to guess correctly, and most viewing audience members had never heard of Philo Farnsworth, a poignant demonstration of how completely his contributions had been erased from public consciousness. When asked if he had made any money from television, Farnsworth replied that he had never received anything approaching fair compensation, a simple statement that concealed decades of exploitation and injustice. Farnsworth spent his later years working on fusion energy research, believing that his Fusor concept could provide clean unlimited power and redeem his career by giving humanity something even more important than television. He established the Farnsworth Electronics Company and attracted some government funding, but the scientific establishment was skeptical of his approach, and he never secured the resources needed to fully develop the technology. Modern physicists now recognize that while the Farnsworth Fusor cannot achieve net energy production in its original form, the underlying principles have applications in neutron generation, medical isotope production, and advanced fusion concepts. Philo T. Farnsworth died on March 11, 1971, at age 64, having spent his final years in obscurity, his name unknown to the millions who watched television every day. His death received minimal media attention, a few brief obituaries that mentioned he had contributed to television development but gave most credit to others, perpetuating the historical erasure that had tormented him for decades. In the years following his death, historians began uncovering the truth about Farnsworth's primacy in inventing electronic television, and gradually his story has been recovered from deliberate suppression. The Farnsworth statue was installed in the United States Capitol building representing Utah. Various documentaries and books have told his story, and the Emmy Awards now include a Philo T. Farnsworth Award recognizing outstanding engineering achievement. The relationship between Nikola Tesla and Farnsworth, while not extensively documented, represents a fascinating connection between two inventors whose brilliance was matched by their naivety about business and their victimization by more ruthless men. Tesla's public statement about Farnsworth being a formidable rival demonstrated rare acknowledgement from a man not known for praising competitors, suggesting he recognized in the young inventor a kindred spirit whose genius operated on a similar intuitive level that transcended conventional engineering approaches. Both men created foundational technologies that generated enormous wealth for others while they struggled financially. Both held hundreds of patents that corporations exploited without proper compensation, and both died in relative obscurity despite contributions that transformed human civilization. The parallel tragedies of their lives reveal how the patent system and corporate capitalism can systematically exploit individual genius, extracting the value of inventions while discarding the inventors once their ideas have been captured. Today, every television set, computer monitor, smartphone screen, and digital display in the world exists because of principles and technologies that Philo Farnsworth invented in his 20s, yet most people watching screens at this very moment have never heard his name. The global television industry generates hundreds of billions of dollars annually, none of which flows to Farnsworth's descendants or honors his memory in any substantive way, a massive transfer of wealth from an individual inventor to corporations that represents one of history's great injustices. Farnsworth's story challenges comfortable narratives about innovation and reward, revealing that creating revolutionary technology does not guarantee recognition or compensation, that powerful corporations can steal ideas and rewrite history, and that the individuals whose genius enables technological progress often receive the least benefit from their contributions. His invention of electronic television stands as one of the most significant technological achievements of the 20th century, fundamentally transforming human communication, culture, and society, yet the inventor himself was erased through deliberate corporate action that denied him credit, compensation, and the recognition he deserved. The tragedy extends beyond Farnsworth himself to the question of what he might have achieved if he had received fair treatment, if his patents had been respected, if corporations had licensed his technology properly and provided the resources for further research. How many additional revolutionary inventions might he have created if he had not spent decades fighting patent battles and dealing with the psychological trauma of systematic exploitation? Philo T. Farnsworth was the genius that Tesla feared most because he represented the same kind of intuitive brilliance, the ability to conceive revolutionary technologies complete and functional in his mind before building them, the rare combination of theoretical understanding and practical engineering skill that defines the greatest inventors. His story demands that we remember not just what he created but how he was treated, that we recognize the debt modern civilization owes to inventors whose contributions were stolen, and that we question systems that allow corporations to grow wealthy on individual genius while the geniuses themselves die forgotten and unrewarded. Every time you turn on a screen, remember the farm boy who plowed a potato field and saw the future, who built that future with his own hands, and who watched others claim credit for his vision while history erased his name.